Right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to CHS Open House Panel Discussion. My name is Eugene. Alongside me, we have Amira, Jinwen, Alpha, and Chatanya. Yeah, so a brief introduction of myself. I majored in applied mathematics, and I have two minors, one in statistics and one in economics. So I'm a recent graduate. I graduated in June 2021. Okay. Then I'm currently a PhD student at NUS Institute of Operation Research and Analytics. So a bit more of myself. Um, I participated in the World University Chess Championship in 2020 and 2021. And I also awarded the Operational Research Society of Singapore Prize in 2021.
Hi, my name is Amira. I am a year 4 life science major and I specialize in environmental sciences. So I also minored in aquatic ecology and I was part of the 2-year Ridgeview Residential College program as well. A few hobbies that I have include conducting guided nature walks as well as knitting and crocheting.
Yep. Hi everyone. I'm Chinwen, a year 4 data science or DSA major. So yeah, data science or DSA major. So I was also in a RC, US-based Cinnamon College, although that itself will soon be merging with UNUS to form the NUS College, which you might have heard quite a lot about recently. Yep. So personally, I have a wide variety of interests. For instance, geopolitics, astrophysics, political science, classical music, and the like.
Hi, I'm Alpha, and I'm a first year CHS student. So that is me, and apparently the guy with me is this prof right there from Chong Su Sin. So he's this vice dean of the student life and relations. So I'm doing a double major in chemistry and food science, and I'm also minoring in nutrition. So if you've heard of it right now, it's a relatively new program under the Department of Food Science and Technology. And I'm also part of the special program in science. So that is an enrichment program designed for students with the interest and passion for science and research. But besides my love for science and research, I also advocate for special needs and LGBTQ inclusivity in Singapore.
Hi, I'm Chaitanya, or well, Chai. I am double majoring in physics and philosophy. Just to tell you a little bit more about myself, I'm actually from India, so I came here when I was rather young. And then for high school, I did the IB, which is also an interdisciplinary syllabus. So I had to do things like physics, chemistry, math, but also things like English and French and geography and whatnot. And then I came here to a CHS. I read pretty much anything under the sun. I love to sail. Along with my double major, I was thinking of pursuing a minor in math. But before I get into why, I was wondering why my seniors picked their majors. So Eugene, you did your major in applied math, right? How did you pick that?
Yeah, so for me, I have 3 reasons why I chose NUS Math and Faculty of Science. So firstly, I have a strong interest and passion in math since young. And secondly, NUS Math is the best in Asia and 9th in the world. Lastly, a more practical reason is that NUS is closer to my house as compared to NTU. So it was, so it was a natural choice for me to choose NUS Math and Faculty of Science. So I believe, Jinwen, you're doing a similar course. So why do you choose data science and analytics?
Yep, DSA is somewhat similar in some aspects to math. So the main reason I chose NUS DSA was basically I took a look through the curriculum and I had quite some belief in the methodology of progression that they provided. How it is set up basically is in your first and second years, you do those foundation modules in math, stats, and CS, for instance, those shown here. And towards the end, you go into those applied hackathon style modules with those business style problem statements. And throughout these 4 years, you'll get the chance to participate in internships, external programs, and some hackathons like the pretty famous Shopee Code League that is growing in publicity recently. Yep. So I think this general setup is pretty conducive and good for a career in data science in general. Yeah. So math and DSA are some pretty commonly seen subject combinations, but with CHS itself, we are starting to see some more unusual subject combinations. So if I recall correctly, Chai, you are doing physics and philosophy, right? What made you choose such a different spread
Oh,
of majors?
Well, I don't think it's that unusual, but let me start with physics. So I always enjoyed metaphysical questions. So essentially questions about why things are the way they are, questions about reality. And until I was about 18, I had a logical positivist attitude, which is just a fancy word for saying that I thought the only factual knowledge in the world was scientific knowledge. And I enjoyed math and science in school, so physics was the obvious choice. And I always thought that I would want to pursue academia and theoretical physics when I came to university. But then going into why I chose philosophy. So I ended up reading more. I started like dabbling with Hume and Quine and Popper a bit. And then I took a CHS core module called Why Science Works, How Science Works, and the Intro of Physics module called The Frontiers of Physics. And I started to realize that the role of science or physics is more to describe reality than to really know how it works. So while a physicist might be more concerned with mathematical descriptions of a quantum particle, a philosopher of physics is more interested in which interpretation of quantum mechanics is the right one. And that was more in tune with what I had in mind for my career in academia. So I decided to pursue the philosophy of physics, hence the second major in philosophy. What about you, Alpha? How did you pick your majors in CHS?
Yeah, so I picked HI. So why I picked NUS Chemistry, Food Science, and Technology, it's heavily influenced on my previous institution. So sharing a bit about my background, I came from Nanyang Polytechnic. So I graduated with a diploma in food science and nutrition with merit. And one of my most memorable experiences when I was in poly is when I interned at the Institute of Chemical and Engineering Sciences at A*STAR. So I was exposed to the organic chemistry laboratory. So that internship at A*STAR sparked my interest in chemistry and SPS. And it's exactly the reason why I choose to pursue chemistry and SPS in NUS. And because I came from food science major, I still have a continued interest in food science. And so that came naturally for me to pursue as a second major because I hated food engineering and I wanted to escape that. So that's also another reason. I took a gap year after graduating from poly, I took a gap year. So because I want to gain more industrial experiences, so I worked in different polytechnics. So firstly, I was a training executive in learning design in Nanyang Polytechnic. Then I changed jobs to work at Singapore Polytechnic as a research assistant. So I was doing like materials chemistry and material science. Yeah, so then here I am today pursuing my undergraduate studies at NUS College of Humanities and Sciences. Yeah, so why chemistry and food science in particular? So just imagine the world around you. You're all made of atoms and molecules, and you're basically more atoms than you are you. And if you look around you, like your mobile phones or this still standard of living, it's all made of atoms and molecules. So basically, if there are no atoms or no molecules, then you all die. So yeah. So the next thing will be food science. So chemistry complements food science because atoms and molecules also makes up the way you mix up the food that you eat. So things like food additives and preservatives, things that preserves your food are actually made of atoms and molecules as well. And also the various flavor variations, like all the flavor compounds that makes your favorite foods as well, they are all made of atoms and molecules. Last but not least is nutrition. So that is also a subset under the food science department. So that one is things like your nutrients, vitamins, and minerals are also built by organic and inorganic molecules. So Amira, why do you choose life science as your primary major?
Yeah, so a few reasons why I decided to go for NUS Life Sciences was firstly, before I entered university, I had a strong interest in biology, of course. And before I entered, I really liked the fact that life science offered a wide range of different modules with different niches, which was very fascinating. And aside from the selected compulsory modules that you have to take, like the foundational modules, you have a really large liberty in deciding which modules you want to pick. So that's what really intrigued me. And also being a lot of the modules that I took were environmental science modules. I really liked how the curriculum was very different from a classroom curriculum, as they included a lot of like lab works, field works, a lot of hands-on activities to like kind of booster your interest in the environmental sciences. So after I was in life science for a bit, I developed a strong interest in the marine sciences in particular, and fortunate enough, NUS offered aquatic ecology as a minor. So this minor is multidisciplinary, so we had to take life science modules as well as geography modules. So these two hand in hand actually made the aquatic ecology study much more holistic and really nicely wrapped up. And aside from that, they also had a research element aspect where we were able to conduct a whole research as a group, which really gives you a little bit of insight into the research in marine science. So as I continued my education here in NUS, I decided to nurture that interest by taking up the various opportunities that the Faculty of Science offered. So I did take up the undergraduate research opportunities program in science, where through this opportunity, I was able to conduct a year-long research in my third year under the supervision of NUS professors, Dr. Zihan Jaffa, as well as researchers from the Tropical Marine Science Institute, Dr. Jani Tanzil and Dr. Ao Yen Xiang. So the reasons why so from this experience, I actually did a study on seagrasses. You guys probably never heard of it before, but if you think about it, it's just grass on land, but in the water. So although it sounds really simple, but they are also known as the forests of the ocean. So they are very valuable. And I noticed that there is a significant gap in the study of seagrasses here in Singapore. So that's why I chose to work on it. And through this opportunity, I was actually able to work on the St. John's Island National Marine Lab, and fortunate enough to get awarded the Explore Young Marine Scientist Award, where I was given grant money to support my year-long project for the Europes. Yeah, so from this experience, I found out that research is a lot of independent work because you're working with yourself. So you have to plan everything from your field work to your lab works and having to sort of create your own timeline. And also I noticed that although from the outside research seems really cool and very interesting, but at the end of the day, it was very tedious work. So I know Eugene, you also did your own research, Europe's research project during your undergraduate. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about that?
Yep. So for my Europes, I worked with Prof. Zhang Tenren on a projective geometry and topology. Yeah, so this Europes provides me a chance for me to explore an area that is not taught deeply in the usual classes, and also learn how to think and write math more abstractly. So it is a very fulfilling and rewarding exposure to research at the university level, which is not very frequently seen in JC or Poly. So I will next talk about my final year project, FYP. So I collaborated with Prof. Vincent Tan, Prof. So Yong Sheng, and Dr. Miller. So the idea for this project is that there are many medical risk prediction models that are very hard to decipher, and doctors could not analyze these results, and the models might not be very meaningful. So for our project, we wanted to build an interpretable ICU mortality risk calculator so that the doctors could analyze the patient profiles and in hope of improving the patient care after they are discharged from the ICU. Yeah, so for this project, we use various mathematical and statistical tools with a slight medical domain knowledge for this practical problem. So I was honored that this project was very widely received by the medical society, and I could publish this as a paper to IEEE EMBC in 2021. For this, because due to COVID, I'm not able to go over to Mexico for the conference, and then it's being held online. Yeah. So, Amira, how was your FYP experience?
Yeah, so following my Europe's experience in my third year, I decided to expand on the work that I was doing in my final year to make the study more holistic. So what I studied on was the variations in seagrass beds within modified coastal habitats along the southern islands of Singapore. So the reason why I decided to do this was because I think we all know that land reclamation and coastal modification is more profound it's very profound in Singapore. So through this study, I was able to find that these seagrasses were able to find refuge within these modified coastal habitats, which means that these areas should be protected, as we should maintain the diversity of seagrasses in Singapore because they hold a lot of animals in that area. So overall, through my 2-year research experience here in NUS, I think the biggest takeaway that I had was the connections and the people that I've met along the way, from the researchers to research assistants or whoever, whatnot that I've met, because personally, I felt like I realized that forming these connections opened up a lot of opportunities and pathways for myself. Yeah. So, Alpha, I heard that you are. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about your research work in SPS?
Hi, Amira. So this is what we call interdisciplinary science research. So if this term is relatively new to you, it will be explained by the special program in science. So special program in science might sound a bit unfamiliar to some of you, but what it is just a 2-year enrichment program that's designed for budding scientists, as what Prof. So has said earlier. So what is the difference? Is that this is an interdisciplinary science curriculum. And why I choose SPS is because you can work closely with the staff and the mentors. So the mentors are basically your seniors in SPS. And this is the reason why I choose SPS, because it provided a unique learning experience that I don't really see in other modules under the Faculty of Science. And this SPS emphasized quite a lot on hands-on learning. So you will learn things like coding skills to experimental planning to scientific literacy. So these are just some snapshots of what I did in my first year in SPS. So you learn how to use Python to solve interdisciplinary science problems. Taking home, you get to do your own SIMO cultivation at home because it's COVID. Because that time it's COVID, so we cannot do in the lab. And also learn the tools and tricks of how to properly annotate scientific journal articles. Okay, yeah. So you're wondering why SPS is so unique, right? So SPS encompasses the interdisciplinary science research in a thematic progression. So you all take 6 modules, and it's not a minor because minor has 5 modules. So first, in your first year, you will do the science in the microscopic level. Then in the second year, if you will view science from the microscopic level, so from the Earth to the universe to the sky. So after finishing the first 5 modules, you apply the 5 SPS modules into the integrated science project. So this is the key characteristic of SPS. So this is like Europe's, but it's more interdisciplinary, and you apply the first 5 modules to solve an interdisciplinary science research problem. Even though it's like Europe's, but one key difference is that this is a group project. So this is more like, so you don't have to work alone in your project. And this might also give you a taste of what it's like to take out Europe's as well. Yeah, so afterwards, after the first 2 years, you can come back as a mentor in your 3rd and 4th years. So I look forward to maximize my time here in NUS. So, how
Yep. So residential college is a pretty integral component of most students, not most, but a lot of students experience in NUS and basically universities in general. So for me personally, I stayed in Simmons College. It's a 4-year RC or residential college. The difference between RCs and halls is that in RCs, you have some of your non-major modules that will be replaced by modules following the theme of that specific RC. So for instance, Simmons College is critical thinking, Tembuso is global affairs, RVRC is sustainability, RC4 is systems thinking, and CAPT is community engagement. Yeah, I just mentioned all. So that's the difference between RCs and halls. So for me in Simmons College, I managed to take part in quite a wide variety of activities. There's a lot of different kinds of modules. For instance, I took modules in Singaporean geopolitical science to even modules in nanophysics where I had the chance to use a scanning electron microscope, which is quite an experience for a data science major. Yeah, so you see in the image on the right, it's me and a classmate extracting some lotus leaves from the Faculty of Science garden, quite close by, to use in the SEM module, where we had a chance to look at the structure of the SEM, look at the structure of the lotus leaves after wetting through the SEM. Yeah, so it was quite an experience, as I mentioned, especially for a data science major. Yeah, I also participated in some sports and undergraduate summits and some volunteering activities in RC. If I recall correctly, Amira, you're also in RC, right?
Yes, so like Chinwen, I was in Ridgeview Residential College. So I was part of their 2-year college experience, but I stayed on for an additional year as a residential assistant. So as Chinwen mentioned, RVRC emphasizes a lot on sustainability, which is their theme. And I felt that before entering, I realized that the theme really would value add my academic in environmental sciences. So for my experience in my first year, we had to do a project on sustainability. And for my group, we did a project where we used citrus fruit peels to increase water retention in soil. So it's kind of like finding ways to value add fruit waste. So through this experience, my group comprised of science students and art students. So both brought different things to the table, where the science students did a lot of the methodical and analytical work, while the art students were doing more of the rationalization and background lit review portion. And fortunate enough, our project was supported by a fellow staff member from the Faculty of Science, where her knowledge really value added our project. So aside from this project, the college offered many opportunities such as Walk for Rights, intercoastal cleanup, tree planting projects as well, which further value added my study in the environmental sciences. So RVRC tries to do interdisciplinary study under the theme of sustainability. So Chinwen, do you mind sharing a little bit more about how NUS promotes interdisciplinary learning?
Yep, indeed. NUS itself also has some emphasis and avenues for modular flexibility. So for instance, you might have heard of this thing called your unrestricted electives or UEs. Basically, these are pretty flexible module credit slots that people often use for their minors or second majors, especially in fields related to their primary major. And also quite commonly, these are often used for modules that people are interested in, like philosophy, astrophysics. And I know quite a few people who take language modules, Spanish, French, there's different levels to it. So like Japanese, NLPT 1 and 2 and so on. So yeah, that's also quite a common usage of this. You also have this thing called design your own module or DYOM, where you have the chance to take modules from MOOCs. Basically, can't remember what exactly the acronym stands for, but it's basically online open source courses, for instance, from places like Coursera or edX, where you can take these modules, any kind of modules for modular credit. Yep. And lastly, there's also this thing called independent study module or ISMs, where you propose a research area for a module as a module itself. So for instance, I did ISM to predict the general election 2020 votes, the recent general election under a pretty famous Singaporean political commentator, Dr. Mustafa Izzuddin. And in the ISM, I had a chance to mix my statistical knowledge that I learned from DSA with my own interest in political science. So for DSA itself, actually, it's pretty flexible in terms of the outcomes after you get your bachelor's. you can basically join any industry. So what DSA, the curriculum provides is data science skills in the form of mods and hackathons. As I mentioned again, math, stats, and CS, which you can translate into data science and machine learning. And on any job, you not just need your data science skills, you also need domain knowledge in that field. For instance, pharmaceutical, sportswear, and finance, you need to know the intricacies and what entails business decisions in each field. So that domain knowledge you usually obtain on the job, for instance, in internships in the field that you are interested in. So for me, I'm personally interested in machine learning. So I took some machine learning related mods and internships. In my first, next slide. Yeah, so I took some machine learning related mods and internships. My first summer, I took a ML internship in the maritime domain in the private sector. And my second summer, I took a ML internship in the cybersecurity domain in the public sector. So as you can see, it's pretty flexible in terms of where you can go. And honestly, almost all fields, as long as their scale, they will require machine learning and data science. Not now, but even if not now, but definitely in the future. So is this kind of flexibility also why you selected CHS itself, Chai?
In some sense. So despite pursuing a double major and whatnot, I do consider myself a bit of a deep specialist in the philosophy of physics. So while I do want to take classes from different departments, I did want them in order to do rigorous study to prepare me for graduate studies in both philosophy and physics. So for example, this semester I took a class called Basic Discrete Mathematics, which is in the math department, but extremely useful for analytic philosophy. So over here, we see a level of comprehensiveness in versatility. And I suppose due to my background with the IB and interdisciplinary curriculum was attractive to me, so to speak. I also find just the sheer number of opportunities very inviting, whether it's exchange in year 3 or NUS is at that sweet spot where it's not so big that your professors don't have time for you, but it's not so small so you can easily exchange ideas and there are many different kinds of perspectives in your classroom. This also leads to some great ideas for finding out projects or theses and whatnot. So yeah, that's why I ended up coming here. Also, just to talk specifically about the common curriculum modules, which is, I'm sure, what everyone is interested about because it's the main new thing. This year, I took 4 integrated modules and 2 core modules. And I was pleasantly surprised because of my background, I thought that I was more or less prepared for what I would expect from an interdisciplinary curriculum. But for things like design thinking, I had never even considered that there was a way to be systematically creative and even like apply to my own discipline. So that was definitely shocking, but in a good way. And I am Asian. I spent most of my life in Asia, but when I took Asian interconnections, I definitely saw the consequences of my race on myself and my peers in ways that I had never considered before. So that was all well and good. However, to the not as great, I did notice that because these classes are tailored for entire cohorts, so that's more than 2,000 people. So there are some people who want to be in these classes, some people who don't want to be in these classes for whatever reasons. But for people who do want to be in these classes, these are far too broad and they don't really go into detail. But for those who don't want to be here, it's way too detailed and in subjects which they have no interest in. So it does leave a lot of people unhappy. But that's just a consequence of what it's trying to do. So yeah, what about you, Alpha? How did you end up choosing CHS?
Hi, Chai. So why I picked CHS is because of its interdisciplinary. So it's known as the common curriculum that it somehow became the hallmark of CHS, but also it's customizable. So I think if you attended the earlier talk by Prof. So there's many combinations. You can combine your major and your minor. So that is also another reason why I choose CHS. And last but not least, it's also enriching, so that things like your SPS or even the halls or the RCs that NUS has offered. But also, I realized that having an interdisciplinary education is important because it helps you to understand the world around you by giving you the full picture. So if you think about it, let's say food security is Singapore has trying to strengthen its food security, right? And this kind of problem cannot be resolved but just by looking at the scientific perspective. You also must consider how the social scientist also looks at this issue as well. So that's an example of why having interdisciplinary education helps us to provide a complete understanding of the world around us. So here are some of the common curriculum modules that I took in my first year. So as you notice, that SBS maps to some of the common curriculum pillars. So that is the beauty of having an enrichment program. Some of them can be mapped into the common curriculum pillars, so you do not need to take the general ones like those who are not in any enrichment program. And you can see from the map that I did my toes in various fields outside of my major. So things like humanities, Asian studies, and even coding and design thinking. But of course, CHS is not always a bed of roses, because there'll always be some challenges with the common curriculum as well. So the first thing is that there are some common curriculum pillars have single modules, so that will be taken by the entire CHS cohort. So you can imagine like this amount of students taking this cohort. So the content rise has to be very broad and shallow, because just imagine that a science student taking a humanities module or arts student taking science module, it cannot be so deep that it overwhelms those who don't want to be here, right? So that is why it has to be broad, and it is, although intentional to be broad, intentionally designed to be broad-based, but you might not get much appreciation from taking these modules. And furthermore, some of these modules are challenging and sometimes painful. So for example, the human conditioning Asian studies, because I came from Polytechnic and I don't touch any humanities modules in Poly. So you can imagine how many years it was been since I studied humanities, and then you just suddenly come into NUS and throw me back into the world of humanities, and then I was like, okay, yeah. So, but there's one module that actually piqued my interest in taking up the minor in social work from FASS. So that was the human conditioning module, and this is a year one module taught by Prof. Loy Hui Chia and his team. So why this module in particular? Because this one talks about human interactions, where you read 6 different texts that really defines us as humans. And it's so well crafted that I think it somehow piqued my interest in really understanding how social workers do their job. And this is also something that's not related to any science or any way. Yeah, so I might also consider taking a minor in social work, but it also depends on whether I can squeeze into my space as well. So what is the main takeaway from the CHS Common Curriculum is that the main takeaway is that you should, although these modules can be challenging and sometimes painful, but if you keep an open mind and be positive about it, it helps you get through the process, and it also, you may discover something that you may never expect you to like. So I look forward to maximize my time here in NUS. So Eugene, how do you maximize the last 4 years of here in NUS?
Yeah, so for me, I feel that the mathematics department has provided me with a very solid mathematical foundation, and it hones my problem solving skills. I feel that this is very important for my postgraduate research. Also for my minors, I feel that it complemented my learning in many different ways. Firstly, it exposes me to different fields and different problems. Next, I also learned how to look at the problems from different angles, and it supplemented me with diverse avenues for me to apply knowledge from many different domains. Yeah. So what's your takeaway, Jingwen?
Okay, so maybe for my main takeaway, I'll share this pretty famous meme related to machine learning, which is one of the buzzwords, reinforcement learning, artificial intelligence, and but I will not go on. So for so in this meme, you will see 16 images of dogs. fried chicken and some dogs that fortunately or unfortunately look like fried chicken. So yeah, unfortunately for them maybe. So in the ML model, you have limited data. For instance, these 16 images where you must maximize what you have to allow the ML model to discriminate and differentiate between fried chicken and dogs and these unfortunate dogs. So similarly for you guys in your undergraduate education, you only have a limited amount of time. You only have a limited 4 years to learn what you can, and you must maximize this time also since it's a finite 4 years of right learning and expression time before your own career begins. So I guess my advice to you guys is basically to make the best of your time here and cherish your opportunities, have fun and learn as much as you can during your undergrad. So yeah, with this, Chai and Alpha, what are you guys planning to do during your 4 years here?
Well, Jungwon, so having experienced being part of CHS, I look forward to the many learning opportunities here in NUS. So this CHS is a 4-year learning journey, and it's also a learning journey. And every part of that journey, you learn something. Think of your brain like the MRT train, which imagine people coming in and out of your train. So that is like your brain learns and unlearns information. So you may not be able, it's not possible for you to absorb every information that you learn in your time in NUS, but some of it might be useful in your studies or even for your life. Also, part of that journey lies a phase full of opportunities. So as my first year, I already held like 2 executive committee positions in SPS committee and the NUS ACS Student Chapter. So that is a chemistry interest group. And also, under the Young Educators in Science, I planned a chemistry demonstration where it turns red wine to water to milk. So that's under the guidance of Dr. Lim Kim Yong. And also, there's quite a lot of things I did over my first year here. And I also met with a lot of fantastic and inspiring people from different faculties and majors. And that has also strengthened my networking and communication skills as well. So as I said before, this is my bucket list of things I want to do throughout my 4 years in NUS. So you can see there's so many of them. So some of them. So why do you ask? You're thinking why I have so many of them is because I want to give myself holistic experience. So some of them are essential, like the research attachment that will probably help me out with my integrated science project under SBS. Some of them are for my own enrichment, such as in the coming summer or January next week, I'm starting my internship at MOE at the Psychological Services branch. So this is an internship that's not totally related to my major, but it's an opportunity for me to really explore the world of social sciences and also giving me a consideration of whether I should pursue social work as a minor and also an opportunity to explore something that is not related to what I'm currently studying as well. Last but not least, I have this philosophy that too much is never enough. So what does it mean? You shouldn't put a limit to your own learning. And that is exactly why I did that. I don't believe you should be rushing to graduate, So I think university can be the last time that you'll be a full-time student. So that's the last time you need to try to make as many wonderful memories, okay? Yeah, so Shai, how about you? What is your bucket list?
Well, I don't think an undergraduate education can necessarily be distinguished, or the quality of it can't be determined by the content or the classes you take. It's all about the opportunities that you have presented to you and the ones that you take. So let me start with global opportunities. I'm very excited to possibly go on exchange in my 3rd year, so I can gain more perspectives and exposure. And then moreover, I'm very excited to get into more academic opportunities like research attachments or UROPs, or be able to pursue my FYP. And we have all these lovely physics laboratories here in NUS. I'm sure a lot of you can go on those tours. today, and I'm also very interested to try out different fields while interning during my summers or winters and whatnot. And moreover, to develop more holistically in a way that's unique to me, I'd like to continue with ECAs that I have been pursuing this past year and probably add a couple more. So this year, I've only really been, mostly due to COVID, I've been involved with the Debate Society and the Astronomy Society, but I'd like to, continue with perhaps sailing or look at what more opportunities there are over there to really develop in a way that's unique to me. So Jinlin, Eugene, and Amira, what are your plans for after NUS?
Yep. So actually, education at NUS and CHS and the different majors themselves really provide you with quite a wide variety of different avenues and pathways, pretty different. So for me personally, I'm entering the cybersecurity domain or industry to be a data scientist. What about you guys?
Yep. So for me, I would like to tackle some industrial problems that involve graph theory and network analysis as an academic. Yeah. How about you, Amina?
For myself, I actually secured a job position at the Worldwide Fund for Nature, or WWF, if you're more familiar with that. So this is just so that I can continue contributing to the local conservation work here in Singapore. So this is the end of our student panel discussion. I hope this gives you a little bit of perspective into what life in CHS was like. And now the floor is open up for Q&As.
Okay, so thank you, Chai, Alpha, Junwen, Amira, and Eugene for the comprehensive sharing. So if you have any questions, please feel free to scan in this QR code and then post your questions there. Now, we may not have time to go through all the questions, but we would really love to have them because we can still discuss with you during the whole day that we have over here. So I have all the questions that pop up over here. You can actually vote for the question, the one you would like to be answered the most. But perhaps I'll get the ball rolling first from the question list I have over here. I guess this question is for Amira or Junwen. Would joining to an RC be more straining on your academic capacity as compared to hall?
Okay, I can't speak for halls, but from what I heard from friends, okay, so for RCs in general, once you apply and get your spot in an RC, you are secured a confirmed 2-year stay. But for hall, you have to work to stay on for an additional year by taking parts in CCAs and interest groups, which because it is highly competitive, you have to commit a lot of your time into those CCAs just to secure a spot. So personally, that was one of the reasons why I decided to choose an RC over hall, because I think that it provided me a bit more of a security because I knew I could stay on for an additional year. Plus, I knew that I did not have to spend a lot of my time out of my academics just to confirm another stay. Yeah, how about you?
Yep, I agree, Amira. Actually, even within the halls and RCs themselves, there's a gradient of expectation. So there are halls that are more, to use the common lingo, chill. There are halls that are more, again, common lingo, hardcore. Same for RCs also, in fact. So what you can do is try to read up or research or ask seniors on the general style of the RC or hall. Actually, for instance, halls, there's also, I've mentioned RCs, halls, there's also quite a different variety of focus areas. For instance, Varicose Shears is performing arts, Yusof Temasek sports, and the rest I can't exactly remember. Yeah, but basically, as I mentioned, there's a wide variety of interest and priorities for this kind of halls and RCs. Yeah, but so it really depends whether you affect your academics. It really depends on which specific hall and RC you are in. Actually, pretty common. What's pretty common is that a lot of people stay in hall, for instance, for the experience. So many people just stay in hall the first year, then they do not exactly focus on joining too many clubs or activities to focus on the academics because they do not see any interest in staying on second and third and fourth year. Yeah, but whether it's worth it or not depends on you guys. So overall, I think we'll both really agree that staying on campus is a pretty good experience. It really enriches what you already can learn from NUS and basically any university itself.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, this is a question for Chai. Do you have to run around a lot for classes if you have a science major and an arts major?
This is keep in mind that my first semester at NUS was largely a COVID semester, but from the past, it's really not that bad because you get to schedule your classes in a way. So I usually put an hour between ones that I have at FOS versus FASS, and we have the shuttle bus system. So honestly, it's not too bad. I wouldn't let that stop you from taking a multidisciplinary major.
Okay, so this is one of the FAQ questions that we always receive. Okay, as it seems like you're busy with several subjects and activities, how do you manage your time and balance academic with social life? Work-life balance, yeah.
Some of us have no social life.
Yeah.
I think adding on to what Chinwe and I were saying about living on campus, I think I can speak for myself. How I got a social life was staying on campus because you literally stay with your friends and you kind of create a community around there. And it's much easier to make friends in school if you live on campus. I think you just had to add a little bit more effort into making friends when you don't stay on campus. Yeah, so how you balance social life it's tough, but you really have to self-monitor and make sure that you are able to cope with your academics, but also be mindful of your mental health also, because it can be very, very stressful. So having a social life is actually pretty important.
Yeah, if I might just jump in there, I feel like the most NUS way to make friends is mugging together. And so that's a big thing that people do like between classes. And like if you live on campus, it's definitely a lot easier because at night you get to like hang out with your friends and whatnot. So yeah, definitely do try to live on campus if you can.
Yeah, okay. This question is for Eugene. What is the difference between maths and applied maths?
Yeah, so maths is more theoretical, so you do all the more theory stuff. So but applied math is more computational, so you do more of the coding, computational side aspect of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So there's a questions on FYP. Okay, this one easy. Okay, is the food in CHS good? Canteen is just right outside later. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, for me, right, before COVID, right, year one, year two, my year one, year two were COVID free. The year one and first half of year two are COVID free. So there's this unofficial tier list. Singaporeans like to rank. So yeah, it's just a thing. Then there's a tier list, and basically Frontier Science Canteen is always rated as like can I say God tier? Basically in its own tier, it's always known as the best. I will not go down the list any further. Yeah, but I think that speaks enough for how much students rate the science canteen itself. After renovation, right, basically the interior and everything is just different, but a lot of the stores still stay on. In fact, there's a new aircon area where there's some pretty good food. For instance, there's some $5 pasta, carbonara, and like where I always like to eat after my lectures. So you can try if you have time later.
Yeah. So it's just right outside. So feel free to sample. Okay, yeah. Next questions. Is it tough to do research project, Europe or FYP while taking classes? This is good questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I can take the question.
Yeah.
So, I would say that when you want to do Europe, I mean, because Europe is the module itself, so you probably would have some background check, and then you probably, because in university you can plan your classes beforehand. So it's a good idea that well, for me, when I did my Europes, I did my planning one sem before, so I have a clear idea on what to take in my next sem along with Europe. So there is this sort of freedom for you to choose, and then of course for the FYP sem, because FYP itself, the modular credits is quite a fair bit. So probably on your last year, you probably don't need to take that many modules. So you kind of balance the number of modules and the research class.
Okay, thank you. This is a question for Alpha. As a fellow NYP DFSN graduate, I think you know what it is. Yeah. How is FST in NUS?
Who said that? Okay, food science technology in NUS is much more in depth. As you know, as you expect, you come to uni, you'll be more in depth. So, example, the gateway module FST 111B, which is offered in semester 2, is only it's like 5 or 6 NYP modules in one lecture, in one module, and I think and also some of the professors said super weird questions. Like I just had my exam on 7 May, and then like I walked out of the staff room crying because like it's 100 questions in 2 hours, and like you can imagine how many. And then every question looks very ambiguous. So yeah, I hope no FSC professor here, right?
Okay, yeah. This question for Amira. Why do you choose Bachelor of Life Science instead of Environmental Studies?
Okay, so before I entered university, I didn't have like I want to study environmental studies. Yeah, so that was one of the reasons why I decided life science, because I don't know if you know, but life science is really broad. So it covers molecular, biomedical, and environmental science. So when you enter into life sciences, you dip your toes into each of the specializations. So it kind of gives you a better idea of like, oh, where do I want to go? And personally, I feel that because I also kind of had an interest in biomedical science, I also was able, when I was picking the modules that I wanted to take, I did not take all environmental science modules. So I actually dipped my toes in doing some biomedical mods as well, just to like, you know, satisfy that interest that I had as well. So it gives me like that sort of flexibility. That's why I chose it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This question for Chai. Do you think your background as an IB student helped you in adapting well to the CHS program?
Yes, definitely. I've seen a lot of people. I'm not trying to boast, but I did see a lot of people coming from strictly science and strictly arts or humanities backgrounds, definitely struggling in some of the core modules when I did not struggle as much. So. But don't let that discourage you from taking those modules, because at the end of the day, these are what your year 1 SUs are for, and it's wonderful exposure. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Okay, this is for Jinwen. What are the career prospects for data science? Yeah, from what you know.
Yeah, I think as I've mentioned in one of the last few slides, actually data science is a skill, so you can enter almost any industry. I'll give some examples. Yesterday I met up with some of my friends in DSA year 4, actually 2 days ago. Yeah, but so some of them are going to maritime, some of them are going to sports decathlon, for instance, some of them are going to big tech, for instance, in Singapore. And yeah, I think 1 or 2 are also got some overseas job offers. So honestly, really any industry. But I think it's pretty crucial to try to find maybe 1 or 2 internships in the industry you're in. So at least you can experience what the industry is like. Because say practicing data science in the F&B industry is somewhat different from practicing data science in the big tech industry. So for instance, you have different amounts of data. So the machine learning algorithms that you use, for instance, will be pretty different between these two. Yeah. So honestly, almost any industry you can enter.
Good, thank you. This is a general question. Did you get advice from prof seniors about possible major minor combinations?
Yes, for me, Bro Chong is right here. Actually, there's one. The funny part is that for chemistry majors, there's a chemical specialization research, and it's not 60 MCs. I think it's like 80 MCs. Is it?
20.
Yeah, it's a lot more than your prime major. So it discourages you from taking a second major if you do. Okay, like me, because I do SPS and then food science and then chemical specialization research. I think I'll be taking 5, 6, 7 modules every semester. It's like I couldn't, unless you really can do it, but I don't think I can also. It's like so sad.
Oh, yeah, for myself too, when I came to university, at first I was going to do a minor in philosophy, not a second major, but I changed my mind, and I changed by talking to a ton of people, including like some people from my core modules, some of my TAs and professors from my core modules. That has been very helpful, having that exposure and having all these people to talk to. So yeah.
Okay, so maybe I will try to wrap up first. So maybe, okay, so I get a signal. Yeah, okay. There are so many questions, so apologies that of course we won't be able to get to every one of them. Perhaps maybe instead of questions, maybe I will just wrap up this by having everyone to give a final remarks, take away for the new students here. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to mention this, but I think it's pretty ad hoc. So I think it's a pretty common question as to why you choose this course in NUS instead of a similar course in another school, for instance. So the reason I made my decision compared to some similar courses in other schools is I looked through the curriculum, and as I mentioned, I felt it was a better fit for me. So that's one way you can differentiate between these courses. They might teach very similar things, but outcomes might differ slightly because of how they structure the curriculum. For instance, one major in one school might have a slight leaning towards one specialization. The other major, and it might have another leaning towards another specialization in another school. Yeah, so it's a bit, might not be that tedious, but you might have some, inertia against doing it. But yeah, I really spent some, because so I spent some time looking and comparing the different curriculum. Not to say any school's curriculum is bad or good, but it's just different. So you must compare the differences and see which one is a better fit for you. Alternatively, you can ask seniors and people who have already been in the course.
I think advice that I can give to incoming freshmen is not to worry, because I think there's a lot of anxiety in like, I need to pick the right course now, and then you think that this is like a do or die decision, but it's not, because there's chances to change course if you really don't like the course. I have friends who do that. You have chances to pick up minors, second majors to value add, and don't be afraid to ask seniors or your professors or TAs. Just ask, they have your best interest in mind, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, and one more thing, don't be scared off by things where you think that you might not do well because it's so different or new, because at the end of the day, you get freedom and agency by knowing what you want to do in university. And the best way to do that is dipping your toes in not only things that you don't know about, but you don't know that you don't know about. And that's something that's great. And then after that, you can make your decision. So in a way, you have some level of freedom.
Yeah, so one of my advice is that you don't really need to be too fixated on what you want at the start. Things might change along the way. Like in your second year, like what Mira said, there's a chance that you might change, and things you can be quite open to a change. There's no real reason that, oh, I have to take this module or something. You might do something to open up other options, other doors to what you want to do.
And lastly, don't be too hard on yourself. If you make stupid mistakes, that is normal, because it's fine to do stupid things in life. And don't worry about the CHS Common Curriculum. If you're coming to CHS, don't worry that, oh, I'm going to take history, I'm going to take science, I'm going to die, I'm going to get F. No, but try to enjoy the learning process you can, and don't worry too much about the grades. If you enjoy the learning process, then it will just come naturally.
Okay, thank you very much. With that note, please join me in thanking the students for sharing their experience and thoughts. Thank you. So with that, I will hand the mic back to our MC. Yeah.
We've now come to the end of the Q&A session, which also concludes the first part of today's program. I hope that these few talks have been informative and that you have gotten to understand or got to know NUS student life much better now. From 1 p.m., there will be a series of talks on our academic programs at both LT27 and LT28. You can check out the program schedule outside each LT. And if you still need more information or have more questions, come and meet our academic advisors at the booths in the foyer. Thank you so much for coming down.